My name is Valerie, and 18 months ago, I stood on my parents' porch with 3 crying children behind me and a single garbage bag at my feet. I knocked on that familiar wooden door, just like I had a 1,000 times before, but this time my own mother and father looked through the glass and closed it right in our faces. My brother laughed, my sister lectured me, and I made myself a promise. Watch what happens next.
My life was stable. I had a house, a minivan with a cracked left TAILLIGHT, and 3 rapidly growing kids. Maya was reading instructions. Ruby was 6, wild and convinced she could fly. Leo was 4, still small enough to sleep in my arms. I also had Julian, my husband of 10 years. He was charming, popular, and fundamentally allergic to taking any accountability.
I worked part-time as a medical records coordinator while handling the house, school schedules, and midnight nightmares. Julian handled his career as a logistics director, which involved frequent travel, the devastation. Didn single quotes to come with a massive shout, but through an unlocked phone on the kitchen counter, a hidden bank account, and a message from another woman. In 45 seconds, 10 years of marriage evaporated. The twist was deeper. Julian had used my signature from my medical office paperwork to forge a financial loan for his secret life. When I confronted him, he didn't apologize. He calmly blamed me for not being supportive. Something inside me permanently shattered. By spring, I filed for divorce. I naively thought my close-knit family would be my safety. I was completely wrong about them. My parents, Eleanor and Arthur, had been married for decades. My brother, Gavin, 32, lived rent-free in their massive house, using an entire floor for his gaming setup. My younger sister, Chloe, 28, was newly married and convinced she knew everything about relationships. I called my mother first, explaining Julian's fraud and betrayal, asking if the kids and I could pack into their empty guest room for a few weeks. There was a heavy, calculated pause on the line. Valerie, you know, we simply don't have the space, my mother whispered. It was a blatant lie. Their house had 4 bedrooms, an empty finished basement with a separate bathroom and a pull-out couch. Mom, I have 3 kids and nowhere to go, I pleaded. She replied, divorce is hasty, Valerie. Julian is a provider. You need to work through his mistakes. Desperate, I drove over the next morning. I walked up the porch steps of the house I grew up in and knocked. My father, Arthur, answered the door. His face looked rehearsed, completely devoid of the warmth. I remembered from childhood, your mother and I talked, he said coldly, blocking the entryway. We don't think it's a good idea for you to stay here. You should go back to Julian and fix this. Dad, the lawyers are freezing the assets. I have no money right now. My voice cracked. 9-year-old Maya squeezed my hand tightly, sensing the danger. My father looked past me at his grandchildren, standing in the cold. Stepped back and said, I'm sorry, Valerie, we just can't do it. As he began to push, the door shut. My brother, Gavin, leaned over his shoulder with a mocking, arrogant smirk. There literally is no room for you here, Val. You know how it is, Gavin laughed, holding a gaming controller. Then my sister Chloe appeared in the hallway. Her arms crossed tightly. Honestly, this seems incredibly impulsive, Valerie, she lectured. Double quotes, Julian isn't a monster. You have 3 kids to think about there. Stability matters more than your hurt feelings right now. They talked to me as if I hadn't been the sole provider of my children's stability their entire lives. I didn't cry. I swallowed. the burning rage in my throat, picked up our garbage bag of clothes, and walked back to the minivan. We spent that first night in a cheap, worn-out motel outside of town, while the kids treated the double beds like an adventure. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I took inventory of what I actually had: a part-time job, a determined lawyer working on a flexible payment plan, 3 healthy children, and a silent promise made on that dark porch. Watch what happens. The first month was pure survival. I ate crackers for dinner, so I could afford new shoes for Leo's. Sudden growth spurt. I cried only in the bathroom after the kids fell asleep. My supervisor at the medical records office, a sharp but deeply kind woman named Diana, noticed I was arriving early and leaving late. She pulled me into her office and asked directly if I was in trouble. I told her the truth. Diana didn't offer empty pity. She offered immediate full-time hours with complete health benefits. I accepted before she could even finish her sentence. With a steady income, I've secured a small 2-bedroom apartment. The kitchen had only one drawer that opened correctly, and the bathroom tiles were a hideous 1980s beige, but it was ours. Ruby picked out bright, aggressively cheerful yellow curtains as I hung them up that weekend. Looking at my children playing on the floor, I finally felt the cold panic begin to lift. The divorce battle took 8 intense months. Julian hired an expensive legal team to aggressively fight custody and reduce his child support, claiming he was a deeply involved father. But here is the thing about people who outsource their parenting. They don't have the receipts. I brought 10 years of flawless medical logs, school sign-ins, and daycare, tracking from my own office database. My attorney was completely relentless. The court evaluation exposed Julian's complete lack of daily involvement and his financial forgery. I was awarded primary physical custody, substantial retroactive child support, and full control of our marital baseline. His legal team's creative attempts to diminish his accountability failed completely under the weight of my documentation. Our town is small, and legal news travels fast. Soon after the settlement, my mother called me for the first time in 8 months. Her voice was dripping with unearned sweet relief. "Valerie, we are so incredibly happy. Everything worked out for you," she said, acting as if she had been cheering for me all along. "Are you?" I asked quietly, refusing to play along with her revision of history. "You have to understand our position back then," she began, shifting into her classic defense mode, hinting that I was just being overly sensitive. I didn't argue or yell. I simply told her I needed time and hung up the phone. A few weeks later, my sister, Chloe, sent a massive text message, filled with paragraphs of shifting excuses, hoping we could reconnect because she meant well. I read Chloe's text and remembered her arrogant lecture on the porch about my feelings. I replied with a short, cold but professional note, stating I wasn't ready to invite her back into my life. Gavin never reached out at all, which was his own silent answer. My father sent a generic card at Christmas with just his signature. I put it on the fridge for the kids. His role was now distant. 6 months later, Diana recommended me for a major department lead promotion. When I saw the official salary increase on the contract, I had to sit down. It wasn't just money, it was entirely mine, earned, documented, and completely independent of anyone else's permission. I upgraded our living situation to a beautiful 3-bedroom apartment in the exact same safe school district. Ruby immediately covered her new bedroom wall in frantic drawings of horses, while Maya grew more relaxed. One evening, while I was preparing dinner, Maya leaned against the counter and whispered, "Mom, we are really going to be completely okay, aren't we?" She was 10 now. I looked at her. Smiled and said, "Yes, we are." I kept stirring, thinking of the garbage bag on the porch. True justice doesn't always arrive with a dramatic, cinematic confrontation. It builds quietly in small, undeniable increments. It is a lease signed solely in your name, a savings account that grows every month, and 3 happy children who sleep peacefully in beds you paid for. My children have absolutely no idea what it costs to get here, which is exactly how a mother wants it. Julian moved into a small apartment on the east side after his relationship fell apart. To his credit, he shows up for his designated by weekly weekends, but I never speak to him unless it directly concerns the children. Our communication is strictly text only and entirely professional. I completely stopped waiting for an apology from my parents or siblings. Waiting for an apology from toxic people is just another way of staying trapped in their cycle, and I refuse to stay anywhere I had to beg to be let in. Last month, Maya's school hosted a family showcase. She had worked for weeks on a presentation display board. The topic she chose entirely on her own was human resilience, the psychological science of recovering from deep trauma. I walked up to her display board and read the hand-lettered conclusion written at the very bottom. It read, "Resilient people don't wait around to be rescued by others. They simply figure out the next step themselves." Maya watched me read it with her serious, measured eyes. "I wrote that specific part myself, Mom," she said proudly. "It didn't come from any of my research sources." I looked at my 10-year-old daughter, amazed that she already understood a truth it took me 34 years and a broken heart to learn. "It's beautiful, Maya," I said gently. She smiled, satisfied with her work. "I don't share this story because I want anyone's sympathy or pity. I have a leading career, an apartment filled with laughter, and 3 incredible kids. I tell this story because I know there is a woman listening right now who is standing on a cold porch, holding heavy bags and shattered trust, watching a door close on her by the people who swore to love her. It feels like the absolute end of your world. But I promise you, it is actually the beginning. The people who locked me out are still trapped in their exact same miserable routines. While my family stayed completely frozen in their arrogance, I built an entirely new kingdom from a motel room and 3 whispered words. There is no sweeter outcome than outgrowing the people who tried to diminish your worth. If someone ever told you there was no room for you in their life, don't argue with them. Don't argue with them. Use that rejection as fuel to build a mansion of your own. Comment below what you would have done if your own parents locked you and your kids out in the cold. Did you walk away or did you stay and keep fighting for their validation? Because this community knows that boundaries aren't an act of war, they are an act of self-preservation. Thank you for listening to Valerie's journey of absolute clarity and survival. Remember, this story is entirely fictional and created for entertainment, reflection, and educational purposes. If you take one valuable lesson away from this narrative, let it be this. Walking away from a toxic environment might look terrifying at first, but staying where you are fundamentally disrespected will destroy your soul far worse than starting over ever could. Never let anyone use your love as a weapon to manufacture your silence. Your time is valuable. Your boundaries are valid. And real family will always make space for you when you need it most. Keep your receipts. trust your next step, and never look back at the doors that closed on you. Sleep well tonight, knowing that your clarity is your ultimate power.